정상 속도보다 빠르게 혹은 정상 속도보다 아주 느리게 들어보면 그 내용을 파악하기는 쉽지 않지만 오히려 그 언어의 고유한 억양과 소리에 더 예민해지기 때문에 더 쉽게 익숙해질 수도 있다고 하네요. 억지로 해석하지 말고 한번 편안하게 소리에 집중해 보시기 바랍니다.
We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students?
복잡한 문법이 아니라 간단한 원칙으로 영어 문장의 구조와 의미를 간단하게 파악하는 데 집중해서요. 영어 문장 구조가 결국에 이런 거구나 라고 느낄 수 있도록 연습해 봅니다. 자, 일단 뿌리 원칙으로 간단하게 동사만 살펴볼게요. studied, 이게 뿌리 동사고요. working, ing 변신, asking, ing 변신, 그리고 질문하는 내용이 안에 또 들어가서 문장으로 들어가 있네요. 역시나 동사들만 보면 그렇게 어려운 동사들을 사용하지 않았습니다. 간단하고 기본적인 동사들이 사용됐고요. 원칙을 잘 지켜서 문장을 만들어내고 있는데요. 구조를 파악하게 해주는 것도 바로 동사죠. 그리고 의미를 파악할 때는 동사에 일단 주어를 찾아야 됩니다. 뿌리 동사에는 당연히 주어가 있고요. 변시한 동사에도 반드시 주어가 있습니다. working 하고 있는 건 누구고 asking 하고 있는 게 누군지를 정확히 알면은 의미가 풀리는 거죠. We studied, 우리가 연구를 했어요. rookie teachers, 초임 교사분들을요. working, 누가 working 하는 거죠? 선생님들이죠. 선생님들이 working 하고 있는 겁니다. 어디서요? In really tough neighborhood, 굉장히 거친 동네에서 근무하고 계신 초임 교사분들을 우리가 연구를 했습니다. asking, 질문을 하면서 누가 질문한 거죠? 선생님들이 질문한 게 아니라 우리가 연구하면서 이런 질문을 해본 거죠. Which teachers are still gonna be here? 어떤 선생님들? 자, 앞에서 나왔던 표현이네요. 다시 나왔습니다. Which teachers? 어떤 선생님들이 are still gonna be here? 여기에 남아 있을까? In teaching, 교직에 말이죠. By the end of the school year. 학기 끝까지 교직에 남아 있는 선생님들은 누굴까? And of those, 그분들 중에, 그 남아 있는 분들 중에 who will be the most effective? 누가 가장 효과적일까? At improving. 전치사 다음에 가능한 변신 형태는 딱 하나밖에 없죠. ing 변신입니다. 동명사. improve란 동사는 향상시키다 라는 거죠. 좋은 것을 더 좋게 만드는 게 improve입니다. improving learning outcomes. learning은 learn이란 동사의 ing 변신, 여기서는 학습이란 뜻이에요. learning outcomes, 학습 결과. 학습 결과를 향상시키다. 학생들의 학습 결과를 improving, 향상시키는 데 있어서 누가 가장 효과적이었을까? 자, 그런 힘든 조건에서 어떤 선생님들이 끝까지 남고 또 그 남은 분들 중에 누가 가장 효과적이었을까? 그런 분들은 또 어떤 특징을 갖고 있을까? 이걸 연구하고 있는 거죠.
We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students.
하루에 짧게 일부분만 집중해서 공부를 하고 대신에 매일 하루에 한 번씩 전체를 처음부터 끝까지 다 들어보고 다음 날에 이어서 일부분을 다시 집중해서 공부를 하고 영상 전체를 다 들어보고 자 이렇게 영상 하나를 다 보고 나면 뭔가 달라지겠죠? 자 일부분을 집중해서 공부를 해봤으니까요. 이제 전체 영상을 한번 편안하게 들어보세요.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure, things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent. So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition. So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more. And that's where I'm going to end my remarks, because that's where we are. That's the work that stands before us. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned. In other words, we need to be gritty about getting our kids grittier. Thank you.
영어 문장 속에서 동사가 등장할 수 있는 방법은 딱 세 가지밖에 없습니다. 뿌리거나 뿌리가 아니면 변신 혹은 숨어서 나오는 거죠.